Okay. So thank you all for joining. I should do a quick introduction to just maybe remind you or let you know who I am. So I'm Dean Byron. I'm the Trainee Support Manager National, which means so I'm the manager of the trainee support managers on the scheme. So I'm facilitating today. I'm often wheeled out as the comic relief. So I'll take that either as a compliment or a slight. I'll let you decide. But we're going to have a nice interactive session for you. Where you'll get to kind of meet some of us again, go through a few sort of information which may be useful for you. And we've also got breakout sessions and interactive elements too. So hopefully we'd ask straight away that you get involved with us today and make this as valuable as we can. I'm going to attempt to share my screen here. If somebody on the call could let me know whether that's worked okay and make sure you're not seeing anything weird at all.
Yeah, I can see that.
We can see that.
Good. Thank you. So yes, here we are. Have we got on the right slide here? Yeah, brilliant. Yes, so here we are. So the first thing that we'll cover is a bit of housekeeping. I've ended up on the wrong slide. Let me start this again. If somebody could again confirm that you're going to be seeing this. Got that there?
Yeah, we can see it, Dean.
Good stuff, thank you. So the first thing that we'll look at is today's agenda. I won't go through enormous detail, but it's there for you to read. So we're going to start off with a bit of an icebreaker known as the blob tree. If you've seen the blob tree before, then that isn't quite as alarming as it first sounds, but we'll ask for your participation in the blob tree. We're going to introduce some of the team or reintroduce some of the team. And then we've got some various sort of informational sessions for you, which is around our leadership way. We've got some insights from placement program managers. You'll get to meet some other trainees to get the inside scoop on what life is like to be a trainee. And then after lunch, we're going to be looking at some of the more sort of technical aspects, which is the portal system, competencies, and the support available to you on the scheme. So that's what we're going to be covering today. And just for the housekeeping, first of all, if we can ask that you mute your microphones when you're not speaking, it just means that we don't hear your dog barking in the background or snoring or whatever the case may be. And as I said right at the beginning, if we can see your lovely faces, that does help us. We live in this virtual world. We don't get to cross paths too often, and it is lovely to see your faces on screen. So if we can have as many cameras on as possible. Throughout the session, please do ask questions, get involved. You can use the chat function or raise your hand. We've got one of our team, Alia, on the call today, who'll be answering as many questions as she can in the chat function. And I will also keep an eye on it as well to make sure that I'm not missing anything or have said anything stupid along the way that I can clarify for you. After the session, we're going to be sending out an evaluation. So there'll be like a post-session feedback. It would be lovely to get your thoughts. You're not able to go away and complain and not tell us because we won't have an opportunity to correct that. And any bad experience that future trainees have will be on your hands if you don't tell us. But I'm certain there'll be lots of positive feedback, so it'll be lovely to hear that too. So please do fill in the feedback. It's important to say that the session will be recorded and it will be shared out afterwards. That's just to make sure that you get something to look back on if you need to, and for anybody who wasn't able to attend today is able to view the session as well. If you do experience any IT issues throughout the call, just drop a message in the chat and we'll do everything we can to support you in real time. So those are the housekeeping items for this morning. Hopefully that's okay with anyone. Please do message in the chat if you have any questions about that. Moving on to the blob session that we have today. So here's the blob picture, and this is an interactive section for you to get involved. What we'd love to hear from you is each of the blobs on the picture there has a number next to it. And we would love to hear which number you feel like today, or which blob best represents you today. So if you can put the number that represents you into the chat box, please, and we'll get a bit of an idea of what's going on for you. So James is straight in with the number 9. Aha, there's not a day that I don't feel like that, actually, James. Good one. Rebecca has come in with number 3. So I'm not sure whether you're tree hugging or tree climbing there, Rebecca, but either or sounds fun. Sally has come in with number 5. Oh, looking a bit grumpy, I think, today, Sally. So hopefully everything's okay for you. Maybe it just means you need a bit of a lie down after the first few weeks on the scheme. Who else have we got here? So Aaron, number 21. So high and mighty, but still a little bit grumpy. So there's a bit of a theme of grumpiness going on. Maybe it's just because it's still the morning and everyone kicks off in the afternoon. I know that's true for me. Maya has said number 15. So waving, I wonder who you're waving at, Maya. Nice to see that you've got your arm around the branch and staying safe while you're waving. Always good to have health and safety checked off. And who else have we got here? So Rachel, number 17. So you're Rachel, in your case, you're up a tree quite high up in the air, and you've decided that that's not quite high enough for you, so you've jumped on somebody's shoulders as well. I like your style. Okay, still flooding in. Imogen has said that you're number 10. Imogen, very nice. So you have found a solid platform while standing in a wobbly tree. So that's good for you. That's almost philosophical, I would say. Lovely. So I think most people have voted there. So it's just nice to get you involved and have a bit of fun to start us off. And I'm glad to see that lots of different numbers coming in. So at least you're all having a varied and diverse experience in these first few weeks on the scheme. So thank you for getting involved with that. This next section is to just get a little bit more familiar with members of the team. So obviously we loosely introduced ourselves at the welcome event, but I'm fairly certain that you had lots of names to remember at that time. So we thought we'd go through them again today. What we're going to do first is speak to the TSMs. So this is obviously the team that I work in. I'll say straight away that I am currently the trainee support manager for those of you on the call who are in the Northwest. So we're a couple of TSMs down at the moment, so I'm covering the Northwest. It does mean that I'm slowly getting around to introduce myself to you, but if I haven't done that already, then please know that I'm the person that you can come to with any of the queries that you have. And over the next couple of weeks, I will be arranging meetings with you and your placement manager just to make sure that you're all set up in your placements. But let's introduce the other TSMs who are on the call today. So who's going to go first to introduce themselves?
As there's silence, do you want me to, Dean?
Yes, jump in, Sian. Thank you.
So hello everybody, lovely to see you. I'm Sian, I'm the trainee support manager for the Southeast. I've been a TSM for nearly 4 years now, lots of experience in terms of supporting trainees. So I think I've seen most of my trainees now for the Southeast region, but if anybody needs any help, give me a shout. But lovely to see you all today. Thank you, Dean. Do you want me to pass over to somebody?
Yes, go ahead.
Shall I pass over to you, Amy?
Thank you, Amy. Thank you, Sian.
Sorry, my computer completely froze at the wrong time then, but I'm back. So hi everyone, I'm Amy. I'm the trainee support manager for the North Eastern Yorkshire region. And similar to Sian, I've been in this role for 4 years now, took a break. I've got a little boy who's 2 next month as well. So that's a little bit about me, I guess, in my personal life. I've met with most of my trainees now in the North Eastern Yorkshire region, or I've had a meeting booked in with you. So Looking forward to meeting the rest of you, and I will pass over to Vanessa.
Morning, everyone. I'm Vanessa. I'm the Trainee Support Manager covering the Southwest, and I'll also be working with London-based trainees who are on the Health Analysis and Policy and Strategy specialism for this year. I think I have communicated with everyone at least over email and met a couple of people already, but please do feel free to reach out if you do need anything. And I'll pass on to Alia next.
Thanks, Vanessa. Hi, everyone. I am Alia, and I am the Trainee Support Manager for the London region, except for Policy and Strategy and Health Analysis, which Vanessa just mentioned that she is looking after. I've also been in the role for about 5 years. I have spoken to some of you, and I'm in the process of arranging meetings with the rest of you. So if I haven't spoken to you yet, don't worry. We will speak soon. I'm just in the process of getting that all sorted. Yeah, and that's me. I think that's all the TSMs we have on the call, if I'm not mistaken, Dean.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the other one who wasn't able to introduce themselves today is Will. So Will is for your cohort covering East of England and Midlands. That's William Dickens. So just to let you know that that's Will as well. And in the new year, we will have some new trainee support managers starting. So we'll communicate with you throughout to let you know, make sure you know who is who and who you're going to. But just as a sort of a recap, trainee support managers absolutely there for your support. They also share the line management responsibility for you in conjunction with your placement manager. So they'll be in touch with you, competencies, probation reviews, things regarding your employment in conjunction with BSA. So these people on the screen are the people that are there to support you and help manage you through those. So yes, thank you very much, trainee support managers. Lovely to see all of your faces on the screen this morning. Shall we move on to our coordinators? Who'd like to go first in our coordinators? Looks like it's you, Glenn, by the looks of your spotlight.
Thank you. My name's Glenn Sheard. My pronouns are he, him. I'm a coordinator in the North East and Yorkshire region. I've been in GMTS around 2 years now with lots of different changes, but we're mainly based around your placements and supporting the managers, but we are here to support you as well. So please do reach out to us if you need us.
Thanks,
I'm
Glenn.
passing on to Samantha.
Oh, you're on mute, Samantha.
Did the typical one. Oh my goodness. Good morning, everyone. My name's Samantha. I recently joined the team. I live and work in the London region. My background is leadership, learning and development, and I'm also a coach and a mentor. And I work with Alistair. I'm sure you all know Alistair. So I hope to be able to support you going forward. Nice to meet you all. Who's here? Can I pass on to Kashmir has come
me
on.
next. Thanks, Samantha. Hi, everybody. Lovely to meet you. I'm Kashmira. I am another one of the experience coordinators. So I work quite closely with Richard, who you'll be meeting in the next tranche of introductions. I've actually been working with GMTS since 2012-ish. So that makes me the longest standing member of GMTS. That shows my eternal undying love for the scheme and for all of you guys. My apologies that I could not be there in person at the welcome event. It is one of my favorite events, and I do really love the opportunity to meet you. But the other side of me is I'm actually a dancer and a choreographer and an actor, so I have my own performing arts company. So that Monday evening I had quite a large event that had already been in the diary much earlier, so my apologies for that. But hope to be able to see you guys lots in the foreseeable future, and all the very best.
Thank you, Kashmira. Are we expecting any other coordinators?
No, Liz is not around today, so we do have another coordinator, Liz, who I'm sure will take the opportunity to come and introduce herself via email or some form in the foreseeable future. But she says hi.
Perfect. Thank you. So yeah, the people that you see on screen at the moment, I don't quite know what we would do without these. You know, it's an enormous task finding placements all over the country and making sure that they're all up to the standard that we would expect on GMTS, and going through various assurances to, you know, take those organizations and have them promise an experience that is fit for a leadership development journey on GMTS. So big thank you to you on screen here for making all of that enormous work happen. So thank you, coordinators. And then I think we're going to meet the senior managers. Looks like you're first up, Richard.
Thanks, Dean. Hi, everyone. Lovely to see you all. Met many of you at the welcome event in Leeds, which was, a couple of months ago, under that now. I am the senior manager that covers London currently, and policy and strategy and health analysis. I have been with the scheme for coming up to 3 years now, which I can't quite believe, to be honest. And before that, I've worked in the third sector for a mental health trust previously, and in commissioning as well. So I've worked in many of the environments that lots of you have placed in. And I look forward to hearing about your experiences. I will pass on to my colleague Ellie.
Thanks, Richard. Hi, everyone. Morning. My name is Eleanor Wallace, or Ellie is fine. My pronouns are she and her. So I am Richard's equivalent, but I cover the Midland and the East of England region. I don't actually live in the region. I live in Bristol. So for some of you who are now based in the Southwest, you might remember I did your offer call when you started the scheme. I live at home with my dog, who I am, he is my child. You may see a ball of sort of beige fluff wandering behind me. So that's me. Lovely to see you all today. I wasn't at the welcome event either. Unfortunately, I wasn't available, but it's lovely to see your faces here today. And I'll pass over to Monica.
Hi, I'm Monica Sharma. My pronouns are she, her. I only joined the team in May. Unfortunately, you wouldn't have seen me at the welcome event. I cover the Northwest. Like the others, I'm senior manager for the region. Bit about me. I think my background's more around workforce development, leadership. My bag's probably EDI, health and wellbeing. So it really is, I think, my role to try and look to see how we can support our trainees and be there for you as much as we can. What else can I say about me? I'd say I'm probably on a path to self-reliance. So we try and grow our own food, we try and make our own energy, things that you may kind of find dull and glaze over, or some of you might find interesting. So I guess that's a bit about me. I don't know if Alistair is around. Natasha, you can go next.
I did the mic thing. Yeah, I think Al's having some technical difficulties, but hopefully he'll be able to pop back in to say hello. My name is Natasha Katoro. Everyone's pretty much said what I would say about the role. I'm one of the senior managers, but I cover the North East and Yorkshire region. There's Al, he's back. So I cover, North East and Yorkshire. I do live here too, so hopefully I'll get an opportunity to see you all. In terms of my background, it's very much, I come from a background of ED&I, health and wellbeing, staff experience, make sure our staff feel supported. So very much taking that background into this current role. And in terms of something random about me, I also like doing nail art. There's something that's a little bit different. So I'll pass you over to Alistair.
Good morning, all. I hope you can hear me, and apologies if I've had some IT issues this morning, and thanks for the nods. So yeah, I'm Al. Alistair, I think I saw many of you at the welcome event back in September, so good to see you all again. But for those that don't remember, I am also one of the senior managers. And whilst we are one team and we work at a national level, we do have a bit of a regional focus, which we'll talk a bit more about later. And I sort of support the south, so that includes the southeast and southwest. So I've worked within GMTS for about 5, 6, 7 years on and off with different varying roles, and I've been in this role for the last 5 years, pretty much. So it's yeah, and it's been good to see all the various intakes coming through over those years and the development, and the improvements to the scheme as well, believe it or not. So yeah, there we go. That's me. I don't know if I think everyone's got. Has everyone got?
I think that's everyone. So if I can, I think Kashmir is in charge of the spotlight. Could we, Kashmir, get everyone who's just spoken back up on screen, please?
Wow. Okay. Thanks for that, Dean.
Yes,
give
just a
me
small
sec.
task there.
We can help
now,
out. I've got Spotlight as well, so I can help out.
Okay,
Thank
cool.
you.
Now, what you may have noticed is that we have some unusual backgrounds going on with all of our GMTS team today. And the purpose of this is that we've asked all of the team members to pick a background which they think represents them. So just before we have our break at 10:30, I wondered if we wanted to write your thoughts in the chat around what you think the background means and how it represents the team members that we have on screen today. So please jot your thoughts on the chat as to what you would speculate these backgrounds are saying about our team members. If we can get everybody highlighted.
We may have met our fill of spotlighting because I can't seem to be able to add anyone else on spotlight. So we may need to do this in 2 or 3 different sections. I think there may be a limit, but I can't actually spotlight anyone else.
Fine. Okay. Well, we'll do this crop and then we'll move on.
Yeah. If we do it by roles, I think it will be helpful.
Sure. So I think we've got some suggestions coming in already. Eleanor, the perfect storm. Alistair has magnetic energy. There you go. They obviously know you really well already. Richard likes to take risks. Monica and Eleanor may have a love of nature. Natasha, are you a ball of energy? Or do you like to celebrate? Or are you a lively personality who's enthusiastic? I would say all of those, in fact.
And just to give a little bit of a helpful nudge, these are movie themes. So this is all related to a movie.
Okay. So on that basis, then, is Monica a Marvel X-Men fan? Maybe a Wolverine?
I think we've got lots of correct guesses in the chat now. Dean, for this one.
Casino Royale is Alistair Magneto. So do you want to reveal your correct answers then, those on screen at the moment?
So yeah, the overall movie theme is X-Men. We've had a couple of good guesses.
Do you want to go through the names just to?
Just to make it clear.
Just to be clear.
Yeah. So my background is Jubilee. Yes, Alfie. Well done. Jubilee, and then we have carry on. And then we have Al.
Magneto, I think, was guessed correctly.
I'm Storm, and it also conveniently looks like the weather in Bristol over the last few weeks as well, so very apt.
And the guess for Wolverine was quite right. I grew my nails especially for the occasion.
And Richard?
It's just one of the X-Men, I think. Gambit.
I think somebody guessed it right, actually. Down there, Alfie got it right.
Should we put the coordinators up next and we can play the same game? So welcome back, Glenn. Welcome back, Samantha. And we nearly had a Kashmira.
Where did I go?
You might need to do it again, Kashmira. There we go.
There we go.
So same puzzle for you then. So what do we think is being represented here? And we've got a movie theme again, so that may help you out. So we're getting lots of Night at the Museums. Indiana Jones, perhaps? Mainly just those two so far. Oh, Lara Croft. National Treasure. I love that movie. Okay, shall we put them out with their misery then, coordinators? Which movie are you representing today?
So this movie is Night at the Museum. So well done for that. And also we do have a couple of people not here today, so that's why you only have a couple of clues. But well done for getting that very quickly.
Thank you. Right, trainee support managers, do you want to come back, say hello and show everyone perhaps which movie you are representing today? Welcome back, Alia. Just seeing Alia so far. It's a very loose clue on your one if we just leave them with you, Alia.
Where are the others?
Well, regardless, while we're waiting for the rest of the trainee support managers to come up, we have got a few suggestions. So Rocky, it's a good suggestion on a very small amount of information there.
This is becoming a bit like catchphrase where you've only got one tile that's been removed.
There we go. Well, we've got Vanessa now, so that gives us another part of the clue. Oh, Harry Potter. Hopefully we can get some more trainee support managers.
Waiting for Sean and Amy.
We've got the Philosopher's Tone from Katie, so I think she means the Philosopher's Stone. There we go. Well, regardless, let's reveal then, which film are you representing today, Vanessa and Alia?
And yes, it is Harry Potter, and special points for saying the Philosopher's Stone, based on the two images you see as well. So
yeah,
good.
That was amazing. So well done. Yeah. Okay. Well, that's some introductions or some reintroductions to the team today. So hopefully from that you can see we're all a pretty friendly bunch, and you know, we're all here to be committed to you. Obviously Al being Magneto, I don't know, might be sending mixed messages there a little bit, but we're definitely a friendly bunch. We're all here to support you, and should you need us for anything, then rest assured we will be there to help you. So at this point in the welcome event, we're going to have a small break, so just a 10-minute break, just to grab yourself a coffee or pop to the loo or whatever you may not have done this morning, and we will start again at 10:40. So see you on screen at 10:40, everyone. Thank you. Okay, everyone, so the time is 10:40. We should be making our way back to the room now. If you can let us know you're back with those cameras on, that would be lovely, please. So we'll just give it a few moments, make sure that everyone is back, because our very own Eleanor Wallace is going to do a section now that nobody will want to miss. Strike a pose, Ellie.
Thank you, Dean. Okay, welcome everyone. I hope you had a chance to grab a quick tea or coffee. So just a reminder, because I appreciate there was a lot of introductions in that last section. My name's Eleanor. I'm one of our senior managers. I'm going to keep my lovely storm background on because I actually quite like it and I feel like it's very Halloween themed, so I'm going to keep that on. So I've got you for about 45 minutes to run through a session called Bringing Your Best Self to Work. Can I just have a thumbs up from someone or a nod? Can you see the slides that I've got up?
Yeah.
Yeah, lovely, thank you. So in this session, I'm going to introduce you to something called our Leadership Way, which is a key leadership framework in the NHS. But it's also, we're going to give you a bit of an opportunity to go meet each other and spend a bit of time in breakout rooms. So you're not just listening to us all day, you actually get to meet each other and have a chat as well. So why do I want to talk to you about our Leadership Way? So part of being a leader or working in the NHS is you'll need to consciously work on the relationships that you build with all types of stakeholders, whether that's other trainees, your managers, colleagues you're working with, people in different organisations. One of the great things about the scheme is the vast network you make, but we want to be really conscious about how we build our relationships and how we come across to those people. Through your work already, you might be finding in your placements just how important it is that you can gain trust and build really good rapport with all the people you work with and manage, and particularly as you move into those leadership positions in the NHS. And that really starts with the values within us. So we wanted to do a bit of a session focusing on those values and how we can work with others and how it aligns to the NHS values. So that's why I wanted to talk to you about this today. And just to emphasize that, we all know how important first impressions are. I think there's some research that shows people can make judgments about us in very short amount of time based on things like body language, facial expression. So we do want to make every interaction count. And as a trainee on the scheme, of course, you're representing yourself, how you want to be, how you want to be perceived, what your authentic self is, the value you add. But you're also representing the placements that you're based in, the organisations that you're with. And then on top of that, you're of course representing the scheme, which does have a reputation, not just in the NHS, but also as a graduate employer across the country. And then lastly, of course, the entire NHS. As we all know, the NHS is often in the media. So again, it is that representation that you have is for the entire NHS. So I've got two key objectives for this session. First of all is a little bit of just information given about what the Our Leadership Way framework is, what it looks like, and what this means to us. So that will probably take, I think, no longer than about 5 minutes. And then we're going to consider why these values are important and the different ways we can demonstrate them. And that's where we're going to send you off into breakout rooms, into small groups, so you can actually have a conversation about what does that look like for you? How do you demonstrate that? How are you seeing that come across in your placements already? So first session about understanding the NHS Our Leadership Way and what this means to us. So the Our Leadership Way framework is broken down into the heart, head and hands of leadership. And what that reflects is, you'll hear these phrases a lot in your time in the NHS, is compassionate, curious and collaborative leadership. So some of those key principles that we want leaders at every level across the NHS to be demonstrating. Our Leadership Way is built around the fact that we know every single day people in the NHS and the broader health and care sector as well are doing really amazing things under very difficult circumstances, whether that's time pressure, financial constraints, busy, complex environments. But we also know that the best leaders promote the health and well-being of those around them and inspire those people to keep doing the best they can for patients, for the service users, for residents and staff. So the framework is really around making sure that everyone experiences and also demonstrates consistently healthy leadership behaviours. So what exactly does that actually look like? So our Leadership Way formalises what this approach actually looks like to develop this even further, and it complements something called the NHS People Promise, and I'll pop the link to these documents in the chat shortly. So our leadership way requires every leader, again, at whatever level, to recognise, reflect and bring to life every single day 6 core principles, so 2 under each of those headings of the head, heart and hands. So the head is represent the things that we must consciously think about. So every day, what we think about in terms of how we come across. The heart is the things that we and others feel, so that sense of, what does it feel like to be at work? What does it feel like to be on the receiving end of you or others? And then the hands are the things that we should do, so the practical ways that we should be and interact with others. So just to go into that into a bit more detail. So I mentioned there's 6 principles. So we've got 2 under each. So under the heart, which is the compassionate side of leadership, is around being inclusive, promoting equality and diversity and challenging discrimination. And it also means that we are kind and we treat people with respect, compassion and courtesy. So some of the stuff, it sounds really simple, but it is the simple things and these foundational things that do really make a difference in terms of how we feel at work. So the head, the second point, is we are curious. So this is around aiming for the highest standards, seeking to continually improve and harness our ingenuity. So doing things differently, being innovative, trying things out. And it also means that we can be trusted to do what we promise. So when we say we're going to deliver something, that we're going to take something forward, from the smallest actions to bigger projects, we can be trusted to do that. And then lastly, we are collaborative, and that's the hands side of the leadership framework. So that means we collaborate, we form effective partnerships to achieve our common goals, whether that's with people in different teams within your organisation, entirely different organisations, different sectors, and it can be really broad. And then it also means that we celebrate success and we support our people to be the best they can be. I think particularly in the NHS, where we know there is lots of time pressures, there's lots of constraint, it's very easy to get focused on what's missing, what's not gone well. And this part of it actually recognising what's going well, saying thank you, recognising people are making it a really positive difference. So they're the kind of key principles of our leadership way. There is a little bit more detail in the document that I can share if you do want to do some further reading around this, which I would recommend. It's a really good kind of framing to leadership in the NHS. So what we want you to do is, knowing that bit of information around our leadership way, is to maybe start considering why these values are important and how you can demonstrate them as trainees. And both, not just as trainees actually, and also as leaders in the NHS within your career. So the question we want to ask is, what does our leadership way mean to you? And we're going to do that in breakout rooms. So my colleague Kashmira in the background is going to set you up into small groups, about 4 to 5 people per group. And we're going to go through 3 rounds. So we're going to have 3 different breakout rooms. Depending on how the team's function work, you'll either be in with the same group of people or you may change groups across the sessions. And we'll have around 6 minutes per group to focus on each element of our leadership way. So the heart first, then the hands, and then the head. And there are going to be 3 questions I'm going to want you to discuss in your groups. So first of all, why is this element important to the NHS? Why does it make a difference? Why do we need it? What does it mean for us? The second is, how can you personally demonstrate this element? So through your work, what can you do to demonstrate this? And then lastly, what could you do if someone isn't demonstrating behaviours in line with this element? How could you address that? Who could you talk to? So we're going to focus on each element in turn. I will put the questions, we'll try and put the questions in the chat so that you can see them and refer back to them. So the first one we're going to look at is, we are compassionate. So just as a reminder, treating people with compassion, courtesy and respect, and that we're inclusive, promoting equality, diversity and challenging discrimination. So you have about, we're going to say about 6 minutes. I'm going to judge the timing based on how long we've got left of the session, and we'll try and give you a sort of minute notice for when we bring you back into the main room. So if you should be whisked off automatically, if you do have any problems with tech, you should still have access to this main room chat. So either drop us a message in the chat or we can pop back into the main room as well. Otherwise, you should be moved across automatically. So I can see people jotting down the questions, which is great. You don't need to record too much in terms of the sessions, but we are going to try and use Menti when you come back into the main room to capture some of the themes that you discussed in your group. So just take a little bit of a mental note of some of the themes and topics that come out of your discussion, because we will ask you to feed into Menti after. Again, fingers crossed that the tech works. We'll try and test that whilst you're in your breakout rooms. So Kashmira, are you ready to go with the breakout rooms?
Yep, ready when you are.
Cool. Okay, if you want to open up, and you'll be whisked away shortly. You have about 6 minutes to discuss the heart of our leadership way.
So I have all.
Welcome back to those of you that are back. I think we're still waiting for a few more, so I'll just give it another second. Kashmir, are we looking like the rooms are all back in now?
They've all closed, so everybody should be back with us now.
Amazing. Okay, welcome back, everybody. I appreciate that's not very long to discuss what is quite a big topic, but hopefully you got some good conversations in there. So just as a reminder of the kind of the 3 questions we asked you, so it was, why is the heart element of our leadership way important to the NHS? How can you demonstrate it? And what can you do if someone isn't demonstrating it? So what we'd like you to do, I mentioned this before you went into breakout rooms, is just feedback a little bit about some of the themes and the topics that you discussed in your rooms. And we're gonna, fingers crossed, use Menti to do this. So you can either, I'll pop the link in the chat here. So you can either go to menti.com and put the code that you can see on the screen in, which is 66415022. If you're a bit more tech savvy, you can try and scan the QR code. Otherwise, you can click the link that I've just popped in the chat there. And then what you see when you go through is you should automatically be able to navigate the first 3 questions, which is on the screen. So for our heart, it is, why is this element important to the NHS? And I can already, give me great relief, see some responses coming through, which is amazing. Please ignore the yes, that was just a tester to make sure this worked. So why is this element important to the NHS? Some of the things that are coming through about courage, being fearless, I love that. Well-being, we are accountable to the patient above anything else, which I love. Service users at the heart of all our work. Compassion is key to support them through their experience. Yeah. Okay, I don't think I can go down this, so I think we'll just do the snapshot, but we'll share these after the session as word clouds. So please do keep submitting your responses. I think one of the key things I can see that already just in the few responses theme is that patient-centered focus, about patient-centric care, putting the patient at the heart of what we're doing, which is absolutely vital as a leader in the NHS. And one a really great question to ask sometimes when people are getting really stuck into the detail of finances, operational pressures, targets, is what does this actually mean for the patient? It can be a really powerful question sometimes. So if I move across to the next one around how you can demonstrate this element. Leading by example, honesty, trust, being authentic, being honest. Creating a welcoming environment. Again, it can be simple as, a smile, being a friendly face. Treating everybody as you'd like to be treated. Open, listening, and non-judgmental. Yeah, I think understanding that actually, particularly in the NHS, people are going to have some tough days, and for different people, that's going to look differently. Some might become irritable, get a bit angry, and actually trying to help work through that with them, understanding where they're coming from. Training experience, yes, and particularly for those who might be on the HR specialism or a real role to play in that, about actually, what are the messages you're sending your staff, your colleagues through that training. Active listening, putting patients back at the heart. Yeah, again, some really good themes coming through here. Thank you, everyone. 36 responses already. I'm just going to leave that open for a second. Okay, and then the last question. What can you do if someone is not demonstrating this element? Be compassionate. Yeah, absolutely key. So running that theme through to, even if we need to challenge someone who isn't living these values, can we do it in a way that, puts their best interests at heart, that tries to, actually support them? Got patient stories, getting experience in clinical settings. Yeah, that's really, really helpful. And you'll see sometimes boards in the NHS will often bring a patient representative or a patient story into that setting to really connect people to, why does this all matter? What are we doing this for? Again, some role modeling. So as leaders in the NHS, actually, if you see people not leading by example, you can take that different approach and you can set that approach that you want people to follow. Approaching a conversation from a place of honesty and compassion, not judging. Yeah, another theme there. Challenging is something you're going to hear a lot in the NHS, and doing it well is a real skill. Again, something you'll learn as you go through your time on the scheme and also in the lead in the NHS is how to have some of those tough conversations. Values-led conversations. Coaching, yes, that's a great reference about actually helping people to think through some of these things themselves, asking open questions. And I don't think you've started this yet, but you'll learn a lot of those techniques through your action learning sets on the schema on how to ask some really good open questions, how to really understand and help people think through things in their head. Okay, thank you, everybody. I believe they will stay open, so if there is anything else you want to add to either of those 3 questions, you can do. But I'm conscious of timing, so I'm going to move us on to our second breakout session, which is focusing on the hands element. So the exact same 3 questions, but this time on the 2 principles under We Are Collaborative. So that one, again, just as a reminder, is around collaborating, forming effective partnerships to achieve common goals, and celebrating success and supporting our people to be the best they can be. So why is this important? What can we do if someone's not demonstrating it? And how can you demonstrate that element of the leadership way? So in Kashmir, if I can ask you to reopen the breakout rooms and we'll have another 6 minutes in conversation. Again, just as a reminder, you may be with the same group, you may not be, but again, hopefully you can still have some really productive conversations. So Kashmir, if you can open rooms now and you'll be whisked away. Okay, I can see the number of people has rocketed back up to over 150. So welcome back, everybody. So exactly the same again. So you've had a bit of a chance to talk about the hands, We Are Collaborative part of the Leadership Way framework. So once again, I'd like you to go back onto Menti and answer the questions. Why is this element important to the NHS? So exactly the same code as you used before. There is a little reminder of the code up here, 66415022, if you did click off the page. I can see some responses coming through already, which is amazing. So a few things that are coming through. NHS is so huge, it wouldn't be able to function without collaboration. It is amazing. I think, I speak from my own personal experience. You have an idea of what the NHS is when you join, and then you just learn how incredibly complex and how many different organizations, different roles make it up, and actually all the different links between them. So yeah, that collaboration element is so key. Gathering diverse perspectives. Yeah, really key. Diversity of experience, diversity of thought, all of these things are going to make solutions, the things we're doing in the NHS better and more representative of the communities that they're designed to serve as well. Need collaboration to have common goals, to work together for growth. You can't work in a vacuum. Every role, department and trust, ICB is needed to provide healthcare for all. And at the end of the day, we are all here for the same reason. We've hopefully, for many of us, we've joined the NHS for very similar reasons. Diverse perspectives coming out as a real theme already to get the most ideas from people. There's some really good stuff coming in here. So you can scroll down at all. I don't think I can. No. Thank you. So the next question is, how can you demonstrate this element? So again, got some responses coming through here already. I can see already there's going to be some parallels as to the first leadership way of the heart. And there is some crossover between these 2 elements, of course, because there are some common principles and themes that are going to underpin all of them. One really practical one I like here is trying meeting people in person and not online. Yeah, I mean, for a lot of us, there is a much more either hybrid or virtual element than there was 4 or 5 years ago, but actually it can be really valuable to still get some time in person with people to see, is that seeing your whole self, isn't it, being in person. Expanding your network and trying to meet different areas of service. Yeah, again, I think there's loads of opportunities on the scheme in particular to go shadow, meet different people, to network and really broaden your horizon. And I know for a lot of people, that network does come in really valuable when you're a leader in your career in the NHS. Seeking out connections, asking people for perspectives, building relationships with a range of people. One of the good things is that we don't all see the world in the same way. So actually, again, asking people how they're viewing a situation, what's their read on it, can be really helpful to help us be informed as leaders. Sharing ideas, having honest conversations, and acting transparently. Yeah, really, some really good answers here. And again, seeing some themes come out. And then lastly, what can you do if someone is not demonstrating this element? Supporting with making connections, yeah, actually helping others, facilitating introductions within the organisation with people outside the organisation. That could be a really powerful thing to do. And again, it can be quite a small gesture sometimes, just doing a sort of, a coffee introduction to someone. Negotiation skills, compassionate negotiation skills. I love that phrase. What does this person want out of the situation? Actually, that's a really good one around, what is their investment? What's their goal? Can you find some alignment where actually you're still working together, even though you've got different goals or different interests? How can you bring everything back to patient care as a shared value? So that underpinning shared goal. Elaborate and show what collaboration can achieve to motivate colleagues and collaborate. Some really great resources online where organisations, teams showcases what they've done. Again, social media is a great space for that. Some of the awards that you see, again, recognise really great case studies of people working together for innovation. So lots of great learning that you can share with colleagues to inspire them to be more collaborative within their work. Okay, I'm really conscious of timing, so I am going to move us on swiftly to our very last breakout room, which is We Are Curious. So this one is aiming for the highest standards and seeking to continually improve harnessing our ingenuity. I always find that word quite difficult to say. And then secondly, we can be trusted to do what we promise. Exactly the same. How can you demonstrate it? Why is it important? And what can you do if someone isn't demonstrating it? So Kashmira, once again, if I can ask you to open the breakout rooms, you have another 6 minutes to discuss this element. We'll see you all shortly. Welcome back, everybody. I've just noticed a whole room of you together, which is lovely. I'm assuming that's Wellington House by the looks of things. So lovely to see you all in Wellington House. So hopefully, again, you've had a chance for some final conversations. So we'll just do one final round of Menti. If I can ask everyone to go on mute, please. We have got a little bit of background noise. Thank you. Okay, so why is this element, the We Are Curious element, important to the NHS? And I can already see people have been very proactive, which I love, and starting putting some comments against that already. So innovation and development, yeah, the NHS, we've been around for a long time. There are some things that haven't changed in a long time, and it is important that we continuously improve, or sometimes completely innovate and do things completely differently. Fun, I really like that. There is a little bit about you want to enjoy. We spend most of our lives at work. We want to enjoy spending time with the people we work with. We want to get something out of it. So I do think fun's really important. Learning from others, reform, trying to understand what other people's priorities are. We've spoken about a little bit about that before. To keep up with the ever-changing demands and needs of society. Yeah, I think that's a really great point. The demographics and the people we serve, the technology that's available, our views of society are constantly changing, and the NHS is there to reflect those societies. So it is important that we try and adapt and keep up with that. Learning about the different parts of the NHS and how they work together, innovation to combat the financial limitations and technological developments, got there eventually, in a modern world. There's so many new things that are coming out from AI, new technology, that we can have so many potential applications to the NHS. There's a lot of potential ways we can innovate. So thank you. How can you demonstrate this element? Again, already an amazing amount of responses here. So shadowing, asking questions, having an open mind, being open to change. I think there's, even my short 5 years in the NHS, there have been so many changes, not just to how we work, how we're structured, what different organisations do. And sometimes it is easy to get jaded to change, but actually being open to it, being able to that it may create improvements, it may be better than what was before. Asking questions, learning about others' perspectives, a lot around asking questions. And again, as trainees, you're in an amazing position to do this. You can ask all the questions from colleagues, from your managers and the teams you're working with. So thank you. And lastly, what can you do if someone isn't demonstrating this element? Inspire, engage them. Yeah, that's come through as a theme across a lot of these. Using reason, trying to support them. So again, what's the kind of logical argument? What are the pros and cons of that situation? Chat, find out what they like, what they're passionate about. Yeah, what inspires people. I think that was even part of the potential part of the assessment centre that you all went through, about actually, engaging with different people who are inspired and energized by different things. Creating incremental changes, babies. I love that. I think a lot of things in the world, you see that they, over time, it looks like a massive improvement, but actually it's been done by little changes, little tweaks here and there over time that continuously improve things. And there's lots of research and frameworks out there for continuous improvement as well. Challenging them to think outside the box. That's a phrase I've heard a lot around here, thinking outside the box. One of the phrases I really like is actually, getting rid of the box and being really innovative and not even putting those parameters in place. So I'm conscious of time, I think I'm a minute over. So I'm going to wrap up and say thank you all for engaging in those really great conversations. I think there is a final question, which is just any final thoughts and reflections. So again, as you go into a break in your next session, if there's anything that you kind of really stick in your mind from the session, please do share it with us. It'll be really helpful. But on that, I'm going to stop sharing and hand back over to Dean, if that's okay.
Thank you very much, Ellie. Yes, a very important model for us in leadership in the NHS. So we've designed this intentionally so that you don't get lots of information all in one go. What that means is, in a moment, I'm going to give you some time for you to consolidate some of the things that you've heard, but also for you to plan for the next two sessions that we have. So the next two sessions that we have is you're going to meet some placement program managers and some trainees, and there'll be an opportunity for you to do a Q&A in that as well. So have a think now about what are some of the questions you would like to ask them, and some of the things that you may find interesting in that session. Nothing worse than doing a Q&A and having nobody ask you questions. So let's try and avoid that if we can. But we've now got 10 minutes for you to consolidate that learning, or just under 10 minutes for you to consolidate that learning, think about what those questions are, and we will get started again at 11:35. Thank you very much, everyone. See you on screen there. I'm going to take that's enough time for everyone to get back in the room. So let's make a start. So yeah, one thing that's absolutely crucial for us on GMTS is our placement and program managers. You clearly spend a lot of time with these colleagues, and they provide an enormous amount of value to your overall leadership journey. So we have taken the opportunity to invite some of them here today so they can tell you a little bit about the roles themselves, their experience and best practice, but also to have a small Q&A in case you would like to ask them any questions. So we have three here today, and if I just kind of introduce the first one, and then you have 5 minutes to introduce yourself and talk a little bit about yourself. Then I'll introduce the second one and the third one, and then we will do the Q&A. So if everyone's comfortable with that format, Dominic, you are the first person on my list. Would you like to introduce yourself now and tell us a little bit about yourself?
Morning, Dean. Thank you very much. Thank you all. Yes, so I'm Dominic Geldard. I'm a Digital Services Programme Manager here at the Royal Devon University Hospital here in Exeter. We're based mainly. I've been doing this role now as a placement manager for about 3 years, I think. So got some experience. I've been working in NHS probably for a number of years. I won't tell you all how many. Dean, I'm not going to go and spend 5 minutes talking about myself because that will probably bore everybody, but I'll just try and give you, I guess, a few tips of what I'd expect, when we have graduates coming and joining us, and some other just, I guess, insights. So for some of you, I know this will probably be, the first organisation you've worked in. There'll be some other people here that won't be, so apologise if I'm going over any old ground. But I guess, you know, so simple tips, and, you know, the expectations as a placement manager that I would have would be that the graduate is obviously always professional within the office environment, whether that be online team meetings or in the office itself, you know, correct work attire, whatever role or position you're in within the NHS. And most importantly, just obviously always treat colleagues with respect throughout your time with us. Another key one is obviously, you know, it's probably, you know, teaching you all to suck eggs, but it's about, you know, being punctual to those meetings, you know, whether it be face-to-face meetings or Teams meetings, is to get there on time. And if you're with your placement manager, be there to support them. And one thing with my graduates, you know, try to always teach them and to improve on is that proactive approach. So the expectation is, I guess, you guys are coming in, you're wanting to learn, but you're also, you know, giving back to the organisation you're working with. We can't always give you all the information up front. Sometimes it relies on you guys, you know, being that proactive, you know, asking questions and finding out. Classic example is obviously meetings, you know, where there's agendas, there's minutes, there's background reading that we can do. Let's get in there, understand that so that you were prepared for that meeting. And, you know, that proactive approach again, and always take notes of those meetings, because it gets quite hectic in the NHS. You know, within the next day or so, you'll have forgotten what happened at that meeting. So those notes will help you. And I've always found that OneNote is a great helper in that. One of the other things as well is don't be afraid to ask questions. I've worked with graduates in the past who feel that they're not in a position to ask those questions. We're here to help you. Our role as a placement manager is to support and get you through those 10, 11 months with us and get the most out of the placement with us. To do that, you need to ask us questions. Again, we don't know what we don't know. So if you're unsure of something, ask us questions. If you want us to review an email or a Word document before it goes out to maybe more senior people, feel free to get your placement managers to review it. Better that way, then we get the right message out there than having to deal with, you know, the consequences that, you know, is misinterpreted afterwards. And communication, I guess, is, you know, one of those strongest skills. We're now moving into a very hybrid approach in how we work, whether some of us are in the office or some of us, you know, are spending a lot of time working remotely. But if you can, get out there, you know, in the first few months of your placement, meet those, you know, members of the staff, the people you're working with face to face, you know, build those relationships, and get to understand how they work in their environment. Because in the digital world that I work in and with my graduates, it's very easy for us to run our projects and things and sit behind a computer, but actually not experience, you know, how maybe a maternity unit works or how an ED department works. So getting the opportunity, if you can, your placement managers, I'm sure, will help. Get out there, meet those guys, and see them face to face. And I guess, yeah, finally, as I said, you know, we're here to help you. You know, we do this role because we believe in it. We want to share our knowledge, but it's a two-way conversation. You know, I'm not doing it selfishly just to offload all the knowledge I have. I also want to learn, and I want to gain some experiences from doing this with the graduates. So if I'm not doing something right, or if the placement manager is maybe not doing something right, or you feel that they could improve, have the conversation. You know, feedback to them. They're not perfect individuals. I certainly not. So, and I will have my graduates tell me, you know, how I can improve as well. And it's an opportunity for me to learn. So, yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much, Dominic. That's really interesting. And I used to have a manager tell me, you can be as smart as you want, but people will always remember whether there was milk in the fridge. And I think what he meant by that was some of the basics that you were talking about: punctuality, making notes, being prepared, communication. You know, they're often overlooked, but they are things that make us tick and make everything go smoothly. So really lovely to hear you point to those, Dominic. Thank you. So I think next we've got Aisha. Aisha, would you like to come on and introduce yourself and do the same?
Yeah, thank you so much. So hi everyone, I'm Aisha Gungur. I'm a Senior Strategy and Policy Manager in NHS England. I was a trainee myself in 2017, which is a scarily long time ago. So I can definitely see things from both perspectives. As being a trainee, I'm London based. And since then, I've had kind of at least four graduate trainees with me. So I've definitely been from the line manager and the trainee perspective. I would definitely echo everything that Dominic said. I would completely agree with all of that. I think as a trainee, it's really important that you meet with your line manager. I would say every week, but if it's not possible, at least every 2 weeks to get that dialogue. And kind of as Dominic said, you know, the line manager is there to support you, teach you the ropes, familiarize you with the specialism that you're in. And in return, you know, they want someone ultimately that's kind of curious and proactive and gets stuck in. That they're the really good trainees, in my opinion. You're allowed to make mistakes. I think that's something that the line manager is there to help you with, and to, you're not going to get it right first time. Why would you? You've not worked in this space before. So don't be afraid to make mistakes. I think being more open and asking more questions rather than being kind of afraid would be the approach that a line manager wants to see. So I think that one thing as well that I've been thinking about was, over the course of the scheme, you'll have different placement managers. When I was on the scheme, I had different ones. Some, it was very easy relationship. We got on, we kind of gelled personally as well as professionally. You know, I went to one of my line managers' Christmas choir concerts that her kind of civil service choir was putting on. Whereas others, we didn't get, it wasn't that we didn't get on, but I don't know if you've all done your Myers-Briggs yet, where we were completely the opposite. So that relationship isn't as easy. So I've just been reflecting kind of what do you do in a situation where maybe you don't, that relationship with your line manager isn't as easy. And particularly as you all kind of, this may be your first role, you don't know what your ways of working are, and you're learning that at the same time. So I think in a situation where perhaps you and your line manager don't gel as well, I would say managing upwards is a really key skill. So setting out agendas for your one-to-ones, making sure that you really drive the experience that you have. So in addition to doing the work that they want you to do, having a really clear audit trail, having an agenda for your one-to-ones, asking them questions in their preferred style. They may prefer, you know, face-to-face, they may prefer emails. Finding others in the organisation that you're in as well, if that relationship isn't as good. So either colleagues in your immediate team or in a slightly different team in your organisation, just so you can really drive that experience and learn the ropes from different people and different perspectives. Something you can also learn from managers that you maybe don't have a fantastic relationship is, as you're on the scheme learning to be kind of future leaders, you can learn, okay, I wouldn't teach my trainee this, or I don't really like this particular thing that they do. I don't know if it's like rocking up to meetings late. You can learn your ways of working and management styles from them. So there's always something to learn, even if it's what you wouldn't do in the future. I just thought I'd raise that, not because I have a terrible relationship with my line managers, but I know that with all the various placements you have, it can be something that can happen just by probabilities. I think another thing as well is definitely you need curiosity. So something I was told when I was on the scheme was that you should really take advantage of your trainee status. There are a lot of doors open to you with that trainee label on, that those doors will probably close once you go into your substantive job. So you should absolutely take the time to go shadow, email different, you know, departments or different organizations. If you're thinking about, I'd like to work for a digital health tech company maybe in the future, just email them and see if you can shadow or tag along or have a chat with somebody. Use your buddy a lot, use your kind of network of other trainees as well, just to go and experience different things while you have this 2 year of kind of flexibility. And also with your line manager as well, ask them. They can even help you with your kind of extracurricular work, depending on how well you get on with them, you know, in terms of looking at essays or things, or just understanding that their experience and their career path so far. So yeah, I'll stop there, but there's some of my tips.
Lovely. Thank you very much, Aisha. And yeah, really lovely to hear you sort of talking about how you manage differences, and actually how sometimes that can be the start of a beautiful team if you get that right. They can often bring the thing that you don't. So it's nice to hear you encouraging people to be proactive in building that, hey. So thank you. And of course, last but by no means least, we have Katie. So Katie, would you like to come on and do the same?
Hi, Dean. Good morning, everybody. I am Katie Stewart. I am a former HR trainee as well. I was the 2015 North East cohort of the GMTS. Post scheme, I have worked 4 separate jobs within 3 different trusts and got my promotion into my current role as senior HR business partner after maternity leave with my son. And just to share, I'm currently pregnant with baby number 2. So post scheme, there is time to balance family and work, and you will get through what is probably going to be a really tough couple of years and come out shining. You'll be great. I have been a placement manager for 3 different trainees at this point, and I've worked alongside other ones where I wasn't directly line managing them. My absolute worst experience as a line manager or placement manager, which I'm going to share to try and avoid anybody else doing this, was meeting my new trainee on day 1 and being told that they had 0 interest in my area of HR and they didn't want to work in that field. I had them on their first placement, which is nearly a year long, so that was quite awkward, and it did set a little bit of the tone for the placement and how that trainee engaged with me throughout. Which was really difficult as a line manager to try and continue to have enthusiasm and to manage somebody who just didn't want to be managed by me because they wanted to work in a different area of HR. That said, I've also had the best trainees probably recruited in the last couple of years who have been really bubbly, really engaged and want to learn, to do anything and everything that there's an opportunity for and to get involved. So in thinking about this morning, I wrote a couple of top tips, which I'm sorry, they will absolutely echo some of the things that Dominic and Aisha have said. So I would say be curious and willing to try everything. I'm sure it applies across all specialisms, not just HR, but there are multiple areas of the same field. So in HR, you've got, HR, ODI, employee relations, equality and diversity, all of those different things all fall under the HR band. And you might have one area that you really want to go into, but give the others a shot. You might not turn out to be pink and fluffy in the core, as I would describe OD, and don't tell them I said that because they'll probably not enjoy it. But I did an OD placement and I learned a lot from it. Have courage. I think Aisha, you said that as well. I've never forgotten very early in my first placement having to give my line manager some constructive feedback on a meeting that she'd done and some feedback I'd had from the employee who was impacted by that. That was a really difficult thing in the moment, but it turned out to be one of the best foundation blocks for a really good relationship with her moving forwards, which at the end of that placement, my then program manager left. So I actually requested for my placement manager to become my program manager for the rest of the scheme, and we continue to keep in touch post scheme. So have courage and do the difficult things. Echoing something that Dominic said, get out there and experience things. You get so many experiences and offers as a trainee. And even now, sort of 9 years on, I'm still going, when I was on orientation in the grad scheme, this is the things that I learned. So do those things, even if they make you a little uncomfortable at the time. They will be things that stick with you. Some things will be really tough in that moment, but you'll get through them and you'll learn, and you'll learn a different perspective. So I had a really difficult second placement or final placement, but I learned so much from that. And I don't regret any second of it because I learned from it. Look after yourself. This scheme is a huge undertaking, but everybody involved is here to champion you, your success, and to support you. If you've got any issues, speak to your placement manager, your program manager, or your trainee support manager as early as possible so that we can help you. Think about your competencies, but don't overthink them. The number of times that trainees are like, I've got this percentage still to get, and you're like, you'll get there. You will get there. I promise you will do them. But talk to your placement manager regularly and update the learning system, because it really helps us as placement managers if you don't have a massive dump of information right at the end of the placement where we've suddenly got to process all of those competencies and get them signed off. And then my last bonus tip, which doesn't come from me, my fiance is actually GMTS alumni as well, but different cohort to me. And I said I was doing this morning, and he said, complete any big projects that you've got as early as possible so that you can help to roll them out and implement them in your host organisation rather than your hard work getting lost.
Brilliant. Thank you, Katie. Just trying to get myself back on screen here. And we should also collectively say congratulations to you as well. Lovely news. So I wonder if we want to bring all of the placement program managers back on to a spotlight here. And then this is your opportunity. We've got about 10 minutes. If you have any questions you would like to ask, then please pop them in the chat box, or if you're feeling brave, not that you need to feel brave, but if you're feeling brave, you can put your hand up and ask them directly. Yes, James, go ahead.
Hey, thank you to everyone for the advice. I was wondering, because obviously there's a lot of, I don't know, pressure is the wrong word, but a lot of the goals of the scheme revolve around management. I was wondering if you had any suggestions or maybe guidance for how to manage in a kind of more technical role, digital, finance, data or something, where you're going to be managing people who actually have a lot more technical expertise and kind of background in the area than you.
Do you want me to take that, Dean?
Yeah, go ahead, jump in.
So probably on that, within digital, we use the ability, our projects as like our method to be able to do that management technique. So we tend to give our graduates a small project, which is kind of a end-to-end piece of work, which they can manage and own themselves, and they have the responsibility of then working with those technical people to get that project delivered effectively. They've obviously got a client as well, which will be normally a clinician. What I tend to explain to our graduates is that these technical people they'll be working with, they're the subject matter experts. They know what they're doing. It's not our job as the project manager or the person managing that project to be telling them how to do their job. It's for us to facilitate. So if you've basically got to be led by them on how they think it should be done. They're the expert. They should be telling you the right way. We're very lucky in our organisation. I'm sure in most organisations we also have very good digital teams where we have great trust in our teams to be able to deliver it. We run very critical systems, so they know what they're doing. So we just need to be there to manage, to support, to get information if they need it, to bring meetings together. But effectively, we don't tell them how to do their job. What we do try and help with the graduates also is spend some time, as we've talked already, with those technical people. Try and understand, a bit about networks or a bit about servers, so at least you have some understanding. It is very technical. There's a lot of jargon that gets thrown around, not just in digital, but within the whole of NHS. So just ask those questions. These people are more than happy to talk you through it, and sometimes are quite excited the fact that you're showing an interest in something that other people see as quite boring and dull. But to them, technical infrastructure is probably very exciting to them. Does that help answer the question?
Yeah, no, it's very helpful. Thank you very much, Dominic.
Okay, thanks, James.
Thank you for taking that one, Dominic. So I can see that Kieran's put a very similar question into the chat there. So I hope that one is helpful for you too. We have another question here, which is, what would you say is the best way to network and the best ways to keep up networking connections? As we meet a lot of people in the NHS, but I'm not sure how to keep up and use these connections effectively. So anybody want to come in on that one?
I can give it a go. I completely echo the imposter syndrome and shyness. I think you're told on the grad scheme, like, get a mentor, it'll be great. And you have one kind of conversation with someone and you have to ask them to be your mentor. Definitely don't do it if it doesn't feel right and natural. I would say start off with your buddy and with your cohort. So your cohort are in, various different teams. There are different placement managers that also get it. I think your buddy and probably your buddy's buddy should open up a lot of doors. Obviously, having LinkedIn is good. You can look at people, see their career history, add them, connect with them. So I think rather than just having like a general chat about their career, which you can do, it's probably better to kind of have an anchor in terms of someone who works in your organization. And if you're interested in that role in the future, then you could ask how they got to where they got to. But I think don't force it, kind of just build it up slowly, and it will probably come. I don't know if that is very helpful.
Well, Katie, I wonder if you wanted to build on it?
So I'm just reading the other questions in the chat, and I think there's a lot of linked questions about relationships, and how to get in the right places and to do the right things at the right time. So I would say, as you settle into your placement, you will reach and speak to different managers. So I'm sorry, I'm not going to be able to pick out the names and talk at the same time. Somebody's asked a question about they haven't had a full induction. Probably speak to your local area lead about that as well. But for that individual, hopefully this will pick up on it. And someone said about how do I get into different teams and things. So you will speak to different people naturally through the course of your placement. So HR trainees, obviously I can speak really well for you. You'll end up likely supporting and advising managers, and you'll get into services that way. General management, again, you'll work within a service, but then you'll find that you have interlinks with different people in different services. And I think for me, the go back to be curious. If you speak to somebody and you've never worked with that service, if you're first meeting with a manager and you say, can you tell me a bit about your service and how do you work and how do you run? That automatically shows them that as a professional, you're not just interested in your own gains and your own goals. You're interested in them and what you can do for them and how to work with them more effectively. So you might have a conversation with a ward manager in whatever specialism you are and say, tell me a bit more about your ward. What are the things that challenge you? How do you deal with this? And then you might see an opportunity to say, do you know what, I'd love to come down and meet you one day. Is there any chance I can come in and see you? Is there any chance I could maybe do half a day on the ward and actually see what really goes on? Those kind of conversations and reaching out absolutely help. You obviously should have had an orientation period at the start of the scheme. If you didn't get from that what you needed, speak to your placement manager. If one of my trainees said to me, oh, do you know what, I didn't go out with a neighbourhood team. So in community healthcare, neighbourhood teams are basically district nurses and the things you think about as a nurse in the community. I didn't get the opportunity to go out with a neighbourhood team, but I've been speaking to this manager from this service and they've said I can go out with them as a placement manager. I'd say absolutely go. Take half a day, fine. You'll learn from it and you'll become a better person for understanding the service. So absolutely just speak to people, be curious and ask questions. In terms of things like mentors, I don't think I ever had a mentor on the scheme. I've definitely had mentoring since the scheme. And it is a really good relationship to have and to build. But I think for me, I would say balance what you need from the scheme versus what you need for you. And some of that on the scheme where you're juggling academic commitment and work commitment, and the fact that you're not actually regularly in work because you're off on academic stuff. It can feel really tough. So prioritize where you need to prioritize it and deal with the people that really help you and enhance your experience.
Thank you, Katie. So I'm just going to sort of tick off a few of these here. So there's a question around working in a healthcare assistant role part-time. That would definitely be one to discuss with your trainee support manager. So I'll just direct you to those for that. And there was another question here, and I think an interesting question within it is somebody was asking about, the concern that a lot of trainees have where they might not cover all or get all of the experiences to cover their competencies, and how they may broach that conversation with their placement program managers to make sure they're getting that full breadth. So I don't know if anybody would like to speak to that.
Is this the question from Carly?
It is, yes.
Yeah. So normally on the scheme, you'll do one strategic and one operational placement. So within the HR specialism, usually your operational one will be within sort of, depends what you term them, the HR team, the ER team, something along the lines of that. So dealing directly with employee issues. You should learn things like your bread and butter of absence management and some of your conduct cases and grievances and how to manage those kinds of things. Your strategic placement would, again, from an HR perspective, regularly be in a service like organisational development and looking at wider organisational projects. So whilst you might not work within every area of HR, so you're highly unlikely to do a placement within resourcing or sort of workforce systems and data, which are two really key areas of HR, you will do things that cover and cross communicate with them. So for example, my OD placement was in relation to talent management, and talent management starts with recruitment and retention onto development of things and of individuals. So whilst you might not work specifically with each team within a specialism, you should gain a little bit of understanding from different people within it.
Brilliant, thank you. And we have another braver customer here. I think Christina's got her hand up. So Christina, would you like to ask your question?
Thank you. Sorry if you can't see me, the lighting's a bit weird here. But for some of us on our placements, we have our placement manager, and then we have someone that we're placed under who kind of takes care of us on the scheme that you kind of work more directly with, and then you have the rest of the team that you're collaborating with. Are there any like cheat sheets or really great summaries to help others understand the nature of our role? Because it's kind of slightly different. So you have some that see us as like graduates and students, but we're not quite that. And they're kind of that linking with how it links to leadership, because obviously some of us are going into places where we don't know anything about the department. We have to learn from scratch and then go all the way up to leadership level. So are there any like cheat sheets or anything like that we can use to help people to understand our role quite quickly?
I'm not completely sure I understood the question, Christina. So
I think I understand the question, because it's like you have like a pastoral line manager, but they support you day to day as well. But I think this happens year on year, that some NHS colleagues, they don't know what a trainee is. Everybody has like a different view of it. And I think so when teams apply for a grad, because we have to bid for grads, there is an application form that the team will submit that shows that they understand what a trainee is for, and what the work expectations are, and then that gets approved or rejected by the central grad scheme. So probably a first thing I would say is, if your line manager or team has the bid that they submitted, and if they could share that with your actual line manager, because that would help set out the expectations. Is there probably some resources on, I know it's not Genie anymore, but around, there's like the line manager handbook. That's quite a big thing, but there might be sections of that you could share with your current line manager, that shows this is what a trainee is expected to do. And so it would say that they're not really a student. That would be my 2 tips.
Yeah, so we have placement program manager handbook, which everyone will get, and I think what I would encourage as well is to have the conversation. Actually have the conversation and see if you can make some progress with that person who's been nominated as your day-to-day, and leave it as a space that you're both learning about each other and working out how to do this thing together. And then if you're really not getting any joy, you can use the usual sort of methods of escalation. So maybe speak to the actual program manager, actual placement manager, program manager. This is definitely something that your TSM can help you out with as well. So there's lots of support, but in terms of an actual resource, you're exactly right there, Aisha, the placement program manager handbook would help. Now, what we'll carry on doing at this point is we'll carry on answering the questions in the chat. But I'd like to take the opportunity to thank Dominic, Aisha, and Katie for providing us with their time today, and giving us some really helpful tips. I was listening to some of you speak, and I think we could all probably laugh and agree that as your career goes on, the one thing that you realise for sure is that you learn more, and then you realise that you don't know as much as you thought you knew at a point in time, and the more you learn, the more you realise that there's more and more to learn. And sometimes there is that pressure at the beginning here that you know everything, and that's really not the case. You're still really early on into your trainee journey, and these things will grow. So take a breath. If we haven't got or if you haven't got all of the answers now, then they may well come, and you'll learn how to find them if not. But thank you very much, placement program managers on the call. We're now going to move on to a trainee section. There we go, moving people around. So what we've got for you next is for you to get to meet some of our current trainees on GMTS. And the way that we're going to do this is we're going to put some links in just a moment into the chat box where you can join a breakout room to join some of our trainees, ask them some questions and get to know them a little bit. What we have is we have 4 specialisms present today. We weren't able to drag all of our busy trainees away, but we do have finance, general management, HR and health informatics. So if your specialism isn't covered in that, just join a breakout room that you think is most appropriate for you and get involved in the conversation. There'll definitely be things for you to learn about. And then it's important to say that this little section that we're about to start will sort of flow into what is going to be our lunch break today. So lunch will officially start at 12:35 and will end at 1:05. So that's to say that some of the trainees who have volunteered their time today, they've agreed that if you wanted to carry on talking through lunch, that's absolutely up to you. But if you do want to drop off and have some lunch at that time, you're more than welcome to do so. But to set it up for you, so we're now about to start. The section will go on till 12:35. But if we can definitely have everyone ready to go back in this room at 1:05, where we will be starting a section on the new portal system. So if everybody can go to the chat function, they will be able to see the rooms that we have available to you. You can click the button there and join the room where our trainees will introduce themselves to you. Thank you very much, everyone. I will hang on for just a few moments, make sure you all get off safely. Okay, so hopefully you've been finding it all super useful so far. I can speak for all of us when I say we love an opportunity to be able to do something directly with our trainees, so we've really enjoyed it so far. The rest of the session that we've got today is looking at maybe some of the more technical aspects of being a trainee on the scheme, i.e. using our new portal system and competencies, probation reviews, etc. So the first of those sections we're going to look at is portal, and we'll have Richard and Glenn doing that. And it's fair to say that, it's a brand new, shiny new system. So there's plenty of excitement around this, but fair also to say that we've all got a little bit to learn too. So hopefully after this section, Richard and Glenn will have made that a little bit easier for us. So over to you, Richard and Glenn.
Thanks, Dean. I think my colleague Glenn is joining me as well. Glenn and I are part of the team that are at least using some of our time working to continue to roll out Portal to everyone. So for those of you that don't know already, Portal is our new learner management system. It replaces a system called Genie. So if you hear Genie, just think learner management system going forwards. It was launched last week. We've rolled it out, to be honest, at relatively short notice. So we are still refining it and learning how to use the system ourselves. We are, or Glenn is going to run through some of the key aspects of Portal and how you need to use it as a trainee through your journey with us on GMTS. he's going to touch on competencies and probation performance reviews and where they are. But just to say that the trainee support managers who'll be speaking with us in the next item will tell us more about that. We're just looking at sort of where they are and how to access them in terms of portal, because of course we thought you'd want to see the new IT system and all of that after lunch in the lull spot. So without further ado, Glenn, who I believe is on the call as well, is going to take us through the system. I should just say as well, we will be reading your comments. We won't have time for too many questions or anything today, but I'll put once again in the chat the email address to go to with any queries or questions around the system. So Glenn, I will hand over to you now.
Thank you, Richard. So this is the screen that you will first see when you enter the system. What we need you to do is click on the green button at the bottom, and this is those of you that haven't logged in already, to log in with your NHS Leadership Academy ID. You will then get this page. What you need to do is pop your 10-digit ID number in the top box and then reset your password. The Leadership Academy ID, if you don't already know it, you can retrieve it from the link here as well. And if you struggle any further with that, you can just contact the Experience inbox and we'll help you with it. This is your dashboard. You won't see this on your first initial login. Unfortunately, I can't quite show you exactly what you'll see, but what will happen is you'll see a version of your profile. And then what you'll need to do is fill in a lot of the questions in terms of your profile. So this will be around some personal details around your next of kin, personal address and things like that. And then some other elements. What I can do is show you. So this is a test trainee profile. So this should be roughly what you will see once you've got your dashboard access. But if you look at the top right corner, where you'll see either a picture of yourself or your initials. You can find a drop down and click on profile. This is how you'll view your profile in the future. But you'll see here down the left hand side some examples of the personal fields. Now it's important to note that although on your own profile you'll see a lot of this information, other users to the system won't be able to see it. So your TSM and some of the senior GMTS people can see it for access to relevant data reasons, but other trainees and other people in the system won't be able to see this information. For example, any disability information you pop in there, sexual orientation, things like that. Again, you can re-enter this at any point to answer, and then there are some specific sections as well that just want to check that my screen's still sharing because I can't see it on the main Teams page.
You are, Glenn, yeah. We're still sharing with us, Glenn.
Thank you. So you'll see some information here, such as your placement organisation. That will be filled in by the GMTS team. And please do give us a little bit of time. As Richard mentioned, most people did only get access the same day as the trainees last week. So that'll be filled in a little bit more time. And then you can see the rest of the information. There's also some supported by here. So that is your direct managers on the system. Some of those will be GMTS members of staff. So if, for instance, Alia is here, that would be this person's TSN. Kashmira would be the coordinator for this person. Unfortunately, at the minute, the functionality doesn't allow you to click on these to find people. We are looking into that. But what you can do, if you go to the top, there's a big search function. So you can click on search, look for the relevant person. It will come up with their profile and you can find contact email addresses if you don't already have those. Again, at any point you can click on dashboard, go back to your dashboard. Shows you a little bit of general information. In progress, it'll show you if you've started any probation reviews, performance reviews, that will be unique to yourself. And there's some other links there that at the minute are not particularly being used, but maybe in the future. For example, the announcements, keep your eye on that. Events, we don't have anything as yet. And you do have a calendar function. So at the minute, again, there's nothing that's been sent out, but we can, as the team, send things out to all of your calendars for this. And you can actually also add individual things yourself for just you to see. So the most, sorry. So if you look on the right-hand side, there's a little quick menu that allows you to go to some individual bits. That'll change as you navigate to the system, but the main thing you want to focus on is the top menu. I'm not sure if you can see my drop downs, but if you do go to the More section, in there you'll have Catalogue, Information Zone, My Learning Plans, My Evidence Bank, and Absence Reporting. You'll always have the Dashboard button. So for your competencies, those will be in the Learning Plans section. These are called learning plans because the plan is for the future for other things to be involved in that as well, so it won't just be around competencies. But whatever specialism you are on, this will have been pre-populated for you. This page is an overview. What you'd want to do then is click it specifically into one of the sections, and you'll get a breakdown then of all the competencies within that section. The rating is what your manager will put in. Proficient is whether or not whatever that rating you've been graded at hits the target. We have had some comments that it would be useful to see the targets on here. We're looking into that, but for the minute, if you understand that if it says you are proficient, it means you are at or above the rating that you need to be at for this competency. And as you can see, this one is in review because it's actually been submitted. What you can do is you would click into a competency. Gives you a little bit of a brief explanation. You can click on request to review if you want your manager to start reviewing that and grading it for you. You can add comments directly into a competency. These may be smaller things that are directly relevant to this one, but you'll see here there's an evidence as well, and this links to another section that we would like you to use more as it's more useful for you. So I'll just show you that now. Again, if you go to more in the top, there's an option called My Evidence Bank. You click on that, see there's some examples here where we've uploaded things. So you'd click on Add New Evidence, give it a name, give it a description, what you've done. So you may have, I don't know, I developed a project plan, went to a senior meeting and delivered it to our exec. Pop that in there, pop as much information in as you can. You can add other supporting information, whether that's linked to a website, an article, a blog you may have done, and you can drop files in there as well. And then you'd save your changes. I'll just show you a quick example of the next page. Of course, my spelling is going to be shocking, so I'm doing it in a rush. So please do ignore that. So you can literally just drag and drop files in. Save your changes. And you'll see here, link competencies. Now, this is the important bit. What you want to do is click on there, and then you'll see all the different competencies that are linked to yourself. And you can start clicking them in and adding them. So you could say that one piece of work links to multiple other competencies. So because I've done this one thing, I think it links to my developing the vision, communicating the vision, and embodying the vision. Then what happens is when your manager then goes into your competencies, in that little evidence box at the bottom that we saw, they'll see that you've popped something in your evidence bank that immediately, well, it will be immediate, but it does link to your competency. But this is better just because you can do it to multiple ones rather than adding it individually to every competency you find it relevant for. So if we just go back to the learning plans and show you one that has it on, I believe it was this one. Yeah, so you'll see this one because it's been linked to the evidence. Now you can see underneath, these are the evidence that we believe link to this competency. The bar at the top is just how many out of this section you've currently completed. We are looking into a workaround for a percentage. We appreciate that would be useful. Unfortunately, the system doesn't currently do it, but we will update you as soon as we can on that. Your managers will have a different viewpoint. If your managers at any point have any issues, they can contact us as well for that one. Now, annual leave. Sorry, I'm going to cough. You will click on your catalogue. Now, in your catalogue, probation reviews, performance reviews, leave and flexi placement proposals will always be your first 4 options. The rest will change as you access through the site. What we want right now is to record leave or absence. Now, important to note here, annual leave you can add yourself. The other 3 your manager needs to add for you into the system. So you need to speak to them first and ask them to add it for you. Each section does have a really robust description of the area and what to do and whether or not you can add it yourself. Thank you to Eleanor for completing that. But you can just review it if you're not quite sure. The simplest thing to do for this for annual leave, as you can see there was one there, you'd click on add an entry at the bottom. You pop in the type. It would always be a new request for yourselves. Pop in the manager that you're going to ask to approve this for you. Pop in your dates. And then save it. It'll populate here for you, and you'll see multiple options to edit it or delete it. Those will only be there until it has been approved by your manager. Once it's been approved, you can't edit it anymore. Your manager needs to do it for you. Any more questions around annual leave and other types of leave, you can direct through your TSM and they'll be able to support you, and I'm sure we'll cover it in the upcoming section. Again, around forms and probation view, so you go to your catalogue, go to probation review, and you'll see another section that does give some explanations. Sorry, I'm just going to cough. Again, a little bit of an explanation of the process here. Different review sections. I know this one's had a few popped in, so I'm just going to go down to December. Obviously, that won't be the first ones that you do. But when you click into the relevant section, you'll see that there's a template there. You can click on that template, it'll automatically download for you. And this is what you'll go through yourself and then take to the meeting with your manager. Go through that together then, and then you'll come back, you'll click on Add Submission. And again, it's quite easy. You can just drag and drop. So I can drag December review there. Click on Save Changes, and it comes through. And then it just needs you to click Submit. That'll go then to your manager, and your manager just needs to sign that off. I can show you on the previous page that once it has been signed, you can add some additional comments if you wish to, but we would expect for most of it to be completed in the form itself. So you can see there's a comment section where you can add little bits if you want to. Important to mention, actually, I don't think I did in the competencies, is that once a competency has been rated, so for instance, I've put something in, my manager's rated it, they've rated it at a 2, but I know I need to get that to a 4. What you can do is go back into something that's already been done. So let's say it's this one. It's at a 3, but I know that needs to be a 4. I can go back in and I can click Request a Review again. So what I'd do is I'd put some additional things in my evidence bank, link them again to that competency. I'd come in here and click Request Review. It'll go back to my manager, and then my manager can regrade it at a higher grade when I've got more evidence in there to say that I am more competent in that section. Sorry, I'm trying to rush through just because we've got a limited time. So do bring out any questions that you've got. So then the other important section for you all is the information zone. This one is quite easy. You just go to More, Information Zone. This is where you'll find lots of supporting documents, lots of guidance, things like that. There's also a portal user guide section that will continue to have more information in it and as we go along. But you just click on whichever relevant section it is to find things. If I'm wanting to find a policy, click on Policies, and they're just in there. And depending on the type of form, it will either automatically download for you or it'll open in a new window. That's just depending on whether it's an Excel, a PDF, or a Word document. The section does have most of the immediately relevant things on it, but we are continuously uploading more information to there, just as I said, just as we've just recently got access. You can also use the top search bar again. So if I was looking for anything to do with paternity, I can search and it immediately shows me the relevant forms. I think, Richard, that was my whistle-stop tour of the main areas. I've not been glancing at the chat, so I don't know if you want to pick anything up immediately.
No, that's fantastic, Glenn. Thank you. We've answered a few questions in the chat. I'd ask, as we've said a few times, to use that experience inbox for any feedback, questions, things like that. As I said, we're kind of we're still developing the system. We'll continue to. So please get in contact with us. yeah, we'll have, as I put in the chat, we'll have the handbooks coming out to you, as well as some videos and things like that, so you don't have to remember absolutely everything that Glenn's shown us today. And many of the other questions around probation reviews and competencies and things like that that many of you put in the chat, I'd ask you to pay attention for the next item or two, because I think we're going to be covering a fair bit of that. So thanks very much, everyone. And Dean, we'll hand back to you.
Sorry, I was just giving a very quick view of the probation reviews, as one of the TSMs did ask me to give a quick view of the initial form. So I'm just doing that in the background.
Brilliant, thank you. And just to sort of be rest assured that we will obviously give you much more time and training on these things as we go through. But the next section that will hopefully build on what Glenn has just kindly showed us there is Amy and Sean from the TSM team, who'll be focusing on the probation reviews and the competencies too. So Amy, Sean, would you like to deliver your section?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Dean. And Vanessa, please, could you share the slides?
Thank you, Vanessa. Thank you. So, and I suppose just as a bit of an introduction, it was probably important to say that actually we're not going to be able to give you all information in relation to competencies in sort of this short session. So it's very much a bit of an overview for you, so that it gives you a bit of a starter for 10. And then if you've got any sort of outstanding questions, if you then pick those up with your TSM, who will be able to support you. Okay, so just to pick up on competencies first of all, and then we'll sort of move on to reviews. So in terms of competencies, and hopefully you've all found where your competencies are and you've started to have a look at them, but just to give you a little bit of a summary in terms of what they contain, you should have seen that obviously there are some core competencies that all of you will cover irrespective of your specialism. So they cover things like report writing, vision, strategy, things like that. And then there are some specialist competencies that are linked to the area that you are specialising in. So broadly speaking, you've got just over 100 competencies, but it does vary according to the specialism that you're in. Now, you will have seen from the competencies, each of them have got designated a different level. Okay, so in this table here that you can see in front of you gives you a bit of a summary on that. So it goes from level 1 being the lowest level up to level 5. So level 1 is sort of your information knowledge based competencies. Then you've got levels 2 and 3, which are more around things like either assisting people or doing an element of a task, but not necessarily the whole thing. And then level 4 and level 5 are those higher level competencies that might take some time before you can demonstrate that you've got there. And it might be, say, for example, a whole piece of work that you're doing or a project, and it often is something that you're doing on a regular basis rather than as a one-off activity. Okay, so be mindful that there are those different levels, and if you look on the portal, it will show you which level you need to get to in order to pass that. When your placement manager does grade your competencies, if, say, for example, you're working or the level that you need to achieve is a level 3, it may be that actually your placement manager says, actually you've demonstrated skills and aptitude above that, and so they may score you a 4 or a 5. So it's absolutely fine for them to score you higher. If they've scored you lower than the competency benchmark at that point in time, then it just means that you haven't quite met the benchmark, and it's still some further work that you need to do. It may be that you need to provide some additional evidence or do some further work in that area before that competency is signed off. Okay, but not all of them need to get to level 5. It's literally the level that is designated on the portal for you. Okay, Amy, if you're able just to move on to the next slide for me. So this, if you're able to just go back one, Amy. Perfect, thank you. So this just gives you a little bit of a summary in terms of how you should approach your competencies. Okay, and the really important thing to remember with your competencies is if you're doing the work and you're completing your activities as part of your daily tasks and your projects and activities that you're doing, the competencies will naturally fall out of the work that you're doing. So what you need to look at is what are the tasks that you're doing on a weekly or monthly basis, or the project that you're working on, and look at that and then map that according to the competencies and use that as your guide. There will be a few odd ones that you'll need to go off. Say, for example, go and talk to finance or go and talk to HR for some particular things. But particularly in the first year, it's very much they will be generated by the work that you are completing. Okay, so what I would recommend that you do first of all is have a look at the work that you're doing, and identify, look at the list of competencies and identify some things that you think, based on the work that you're doing, might map across to those competencies. Once you've done that, you can then have that conversation with your placement manager and just say, you know, I've done a bit of analysis. This is what I'm thinking. This is what I'm thinking that I might work towards. What do you think? They'll be able to give you a bit of feedback and say, actually, yes, I think that'll align really nicely. Or have you thought about this competency as well? Because of the piece of work that you're doing, you may have missed one that might match really nicely. So having that little bit of early dialogue will really help you and know that you're sort of on the right track. Once you've worked that through, you can then carry on, complete the work that you're doing and the activity. And then once you have completed that activity, you can start to write that up in terms of some kind of summary. So as Glenn showed you earlier on the portal, there's a section for writing comments where you write the evidence and describe what you've done. And I'll give you an example in a second about what to do. But there's also an opportunity for you to upload some evidence. So for example, if it's a presentation or a report or something like that that you've done that sits alongside your sort of summary explanation. Once you've written that up, you then review that with your placement manager, and your placement manager will have a discussion with you, chat it through, and decide whether whether you've met that required level or not, and then sign it off on the portal. So that's sort of the broad sort of process that we go through. The sort of a couple of things just to note is, obviously, I think all of you have had access to the competency spreadsheet. So many trainees historically have tended to, rather than use what we had was on Genie, and it will be the same for the portal, they tended to use the Excel spreadsheet as a bit of a guide because it's just easier to sort of identify some key areas that they want to work towards. But it's not mandatory. You don't need to use that Excel spreadsheet, or you can adapt it or do whatever works best for you. So I would encourage you to have a discussion with your placement manager when you start working on your competencies as how between the two of you want to kind of work. Do you want to use the Excel spreadsheet? Do you have a different method that you would like to use that works for both of you? All right, so use a spreadsheet if that is if it's helpful for you. Just to remember, you need to make sure that you don't do section 1. Section 1 is done in the second year, so you just need to make sure that you leave that blank for now, if that's okay. And just a little bit of a tip, while you're just sort of in your early stages of your placement and getting involved in work and those kinds of things, trainees often start with section 7, which has a number of level 1s, which are sort of reading strategy based documents. So reading the sort of strategy of your organisation, long-term plans and those kinds of things. So section 7 and section 2, which has a number of sort of working with others, communications, building relationships with people. So you don't have to start off with those, you know, it's very much down to what you're doing in terms of your daily work, but they are some of the areas that often trainees look at first. So if you're struggling about where to start, I would encourage you to look at those as your starting point. Okay. Amy, if you're able just to move on to the next slide for me. Is it taking a while to come through? Is it showing on your screen?
No, it's not. It seems to be taking a little while.
Okay, I'll start talking and then hopefully it'll catch up. Hopefully when you can see it, there is an example of how to write your competency up. Oh, they're perfect. Okay, so this is a bit of an example of how to write your competency. The bit at the top really sort of describes how the best way of writing it using the STAR methodology, and you'll probably have done this sort of thing when you were applying for jobs and those kinds of things, because it's a good way to write examples up. So think about what you did as part of the activity, what the situation was, and then what was your task that you did. It's important to remember about what you did as opposed to the wider team and what other people did. So what was your role within that particular activity? What was the action that you took? And then what was the result? So what was the outcome? Was there particular, for example, cost savings or an increase in performance for something or whatever it happens to be, and then link that back to the competency. So it's just really useful to sort of write it in that way, because it then gives a little bit of a structure and it helps your placement manager be able to evidence what you've done and be able to grade it for you. So there's an example there for you for one. What I would also say though is that probably is a level 2 or a level 3 type competency. Probably if you're looking at grades that are higher, so levels 4 and level 5, you might need to put a little bit more detail in there just to show the breadth and the scope of what you've been doing. Obviously, the more detail you put in that, it helps the placement manager in terms of their grading and give you, sort of more marks in relation to that. But obviously, you don't need to write War and Peace, so 1 or 2 paragraphs should be sufficient, plus your additional information that you might want to upload, whether that be the reports or documents that you've been working on. The one thing that I think it's really important to remember, and I've said this to my trainees already, is I know it seems really strange to be talking about this now because you've only just started on the scheme, but these competencies and the evidence that you collect through the scheme will be really important for you when you apply for Flexi and when you apply for jobs at the end of the scheme, because you will do absolutely so much across the next 2.5 years that you won't remember everything that you've done. And so this is a really good way of being able to capture what you've done and what skills you've got, so that when you're applying for roles at the end, that you're able to look back and go, oh, I can demonstrate this because I've got this documented, and it gives you something to refer back to. So what you write now and over the next couple of years, you need to be able to, at the end of the scheme, be able to read it back to yourselves and be able to go, actually, I understand what I did, I understand what impact I made, and that's really helpful for me. So when you're writing it, just be mindful of that it's as much for you in terms of your guide and for your personal development as you go through the scheme and beyond. Okay, and there's just an example there in terms of what managers might put down in terms of when they're writing stuff up on the portal as well, just to sort of support and to support your learning. Okay, that's a quick summary from me. Amy, was there anything you wanted to add? Is there anything I haven't mentioned you think is worth raising at this point?
That was great, Sian. The only thing that I would add is that although the system has changed, the competencies haven't. So please speak to your buddies if you need any support, any advice, any guidance. They've been here, they've been in your shoes, they've been new. Competencies feel a lot because there's 100 of them. But as Sian said, naturally, the work that you do will allow you to sign some off. So please do reach out to your buddies for support as well.
And I can't remember if you said it already, but have we given some information on the timing of the probation review 1?
So that is what I'm going to pick up next. So that,
okay, sorry. You're going to speak.
No, that's okay.
Go ahead.
Yeah. So that brings us on to probation and performance reviews. Whoever took control of the slides, wonderful. Thank you so much. So as well as competencies, we expect you to complete probation and performance reviews throughout the 2 years while you're on the scheme, or 2.5 if you're finance. It is worth noting that when you get to the end of the scheme, the expectation for you to be eligible to graduate is that you are achieving 90% of competencies. So that's where we expect you to be at the end of the scheme. We also expect that you have completed all of your probation reviews and all of your performance reviews. And that's what I'm going to speak to a little bit now. So for the first 6 months while you're on the scheme, that is your probation period. And what that means is that you will complete probation reviews with your placement manager monthly from month 2 till month 6. So you're in month 2 of the scheme now, and you will see on portal that your first probation review is to be completed at the end of this month. Before anybody panics, we do recognise you only got access to the system on Monday. So we are being flexible with that deadline. And what we are asking is that the introductory probation review is completed along with probation review 2 by November. So by the next deadline. If you want to do that sooner, I know a couple of my trainees have reached out to me and said that they've already got the meetings in with their managers. That's fine. The sooner you do it, the better. But we are extending that deadline because we do recognise the delay. In that introductory probation review meeting, you may look at that review and question the information that you're going to put on there because you are brand new, and we recognise that. So just to give you some advice and guidance on what to complete in those sections, it's about having a conversation with your manager. So you'll see on that review sheet, it's a conversation about discussing your performance, about discussing your competencies, about discussing your conduct. But you've only been on the scheme for a month. So it's about having a conversation on what competencies will I achieve while I'm with you in this first placement? What expectations do you have of me? And what are the expectations of conduct? The importance of these is that it's to encourage a supportive conversation between you and with your placement manager. And most trainees like these meetings because it is an opportunity for you to sit down and talk about your development. If there's any problems or any concerns, this is where it is all logged. So we have a log of your evidence, and then we have a log of the placement manager commenting on that as well. One tip that I would give is if you do come across any concerns, or if there are any conversations that you're having with their placement manager where they feel that you're not meeting the expectations, then I would encourage you to reach out to your TSM immediately. We are here to support you. It means that we can then put a support plan in place and make sure that you then get back on track, or you work on the things that you may not be meeting expectations on. So that's how the probation period will work. And then there'll be a final probation in month 6. So that will be in February. And that will work in line with your competencies, because by the time you get to the end of the probation, we would expect you to be at 15% competencies as well. And that's for all specialisms. You'll see on this infographic in front of me on the slide that by month 12, we would then expect everyone to be around 40% or around 30 for 40 for finance trainees. Finance trainees, your timeline is slightly different, and that's because you're on the scheme for a longer period of time. Could I have the next slide, please? Okay, so here is just an overview and an example of one of the questions which is asked on your probation and on your performance reviews. Glenn kindly showed the form, and I'm hoping that you've all been on portal and have had a look at this already, but this is just an example of what it looks like. So one of the questions is work performance. You are expected to put some evidence in there. And then you will arrange the meeting with your placement manager, and your placement manager will then have a conversation with you, provide you with some feedback, and then they will know whether you are meeting expectations or not. The main point of this is that you're sitting down and you're having the conversation. That's really important. And then you're documenting it as well. Glenn spoke about the process of this and showed you on Portal, so I won't go into that too much, but the emphasis is on the trainee. So you will need to make sure that you are meeting those deadlines, you are putting your evidence in there, and you are meeting with your manager frequently to talk about your probation and your performance reviews. One tip that I would say is in your first review meeting, I would personally get the meetings booked in the diary for the next year so that you know when you are going to sit down with your manager and you're going to focus on your probation or your performance review. It's really important. Also, one thing that's quite common on the scheme is trainees coming to the TSM and saying, you're really struggling to get your manager to sit down with you. They keep moving the meetings, or you're not going to make the deadline. I would encourage you to reach out to your trainee support manager if this is happening. We can absolutely support you in these situations if we know about it. It's best to approach us before than 3 months down the line and us realizing that you've not completed any of these reviews. So we are here as your TSMs to support you. So please do work with us, keep communicating with us, because we do want you to succeed with this and on the scheme. Next slide, please. And here is just an overview of that timeline. So as I said, in year one, for the first 6 months, that's your probation period. So they are the months where you're expected to complete your probation review by. The deadline is always the end of the month. Again, if you can't make that deadline, please let your TSM know. And it's important to note as well that your TSM is able to see all of these. So we are able to see if somebody hasn't completed one, and we can try and support you with that if we see that you're falling behind with some of these deadlines. February will be your final probation review where you're expected to be at 15%, and then you'll see again in the required competency section, that's what competency you're expected to be at and when. You will then see that by the end of year 2, you should be at 90 plus competencies. Is there any more slides that I need to cover?
That's great, Amy.
Well, TSMs, is there anything that I've missed?
No, that's wonderful. And, you know, what I'm seeing in the chat here is that this is obviously a topic of a lot of interest. So, you know, there has been some suggestions that we put on an additional section, you know, where we can maybe do this as a group. I have reassured everyone that those initial meetings that our team will be having with the placement managers will go through this too. So if we can move on to another important topic, which is support whilst on the scheme. So over to you, Vanessa and Al, please.
Hello there, everyone. I'm afraid you got me for a few minutes before I hand over to Vanessa. I'm going to start my stopwatch as well because I have a habit of going off on tangents, as I'm sure Sian will testify to. So I'm going to try and be quite tight. But if I can just ask whoever's controlling the slides to move them on as and when I say, if that's okay. So yeah, there's a huge amount of information that you've had to absorb, especially in this section after lunch. And I know there's a lot of questions, seeing a lot of activity in the chat. So whilst there is very much an onus on you as the trainee, I think as mentioned, to drive forward things like competency staff and showing your probation reviews and so on are done, it's not, let's not forget that there is still a huge support network around you. Now, again, for the purposes of time, you know, this isn't an exhaustive list. You know, you've got your buddies. You know, we would encourage everybody to reach out in the next 6 months, 7 months or so to people that you meet to see if you can get an informal mentor or a mentor to support you through your journey. But what I'm going to do is just Vanessa and I are going to focus on the immediate support to you and how to utilise that, and as well as giving a bit of an overview of the purpose of the placement and programme manager very briefly as well. So if we can move on to the next slide quickly, please. Thank you. So placement and programme managers, in terms of where you're at in the scheme, the most important people to you and to go to for day-to-day queries, advice and support is going to be your placement and programme manager. And it's no secret that in many of our eyes, the placement manager in particular is the most important person for you on the scheme. Next slide, please. Again, not going through all of this, but you've got to consider, I know earlier in the session, there was a bit of interchangeability, if you like, between the phrases placement manager and line manager. Most often, the placement manager can be viewed as your line manager. I know there are occasions when your placement manager, there may be additional people working with them to provide you with your day-to-day work, but fundamentally, your placement manager is that first line person for support for you. So they're going to be the person that manages the day-to-day runnings within your workload, ensuring that it should be at the right level as well, and supporting with things like probation reviews, competency reviews. And as we've said, it's really important to get meetings booked in with them sooner rather than later throughout the year if you can, on a recurring basis. As well as having those really key meetings around probation reviews and whatnot booked in, I would suggest you be meeting with your placement manager on a weekly basis, even if it's just for half an hour. Get them booked in, recurring. If one gets cancelled, at least you know you've only got a week until the next one. So there's some other bits and pieces in there as well, but you'll get this when we share the slides. Next slide, please. So the program manager, sometimes there can be a bit of a confusion over what the purpose of the program manager is. And as you know, the placement manager stays with you on your placement. So you should theoretically, or you should all be having two managers, placement managers, with one for each of your placements throughout your time on the scheme. Your program manager, though, has a much more higher level view. So they're going to be supporting you throughout your full 2 years of the program. And you can see them a little bit like an informal mentor. I wouldn't necessarily recommend you use your program manager as a mentor, because there are other opportunities. There will be other people as you start going through and developing yourselves on the scheme and start thinking about where you want to be post-scheme, that will be perhaps a better place to help. But certainly the program manager can still act as an informal mentor for you throughout that time. And they're very much there to support you in the wider, looking at the wider picture. So maybe there's additional opportunities you're looking to get experience in, or opportunities that can help support competencies that your placement may not be delivering in, that sort of thing. So it's a really useful person to again have regular contact with. And whilst the contact isn't going to be as regular as with your placement manager, I'd certainly be encouraging you book in monthly meetings with your program manager, just to have that overview, so they can have a full overview of how you're getting on as well, and so you can build that relationship early on. Again, there's other bits and pieces in there, but for the purposes of time, if we can move on to the next slide, that would be great, please. Oh, and very briefly on this, of course, as well as your program placement manager, you have the GMTS team as a whole. So very much as we mentioned earlier, it's a nationally based team, but it does have that regional focus. If we can move on to the next slide, please. So you've heard a lot of talk from people today from you've probably heard people mention the experience team. We've got the attraction recruitment team and the education team. So I mean, fundamentally, the attraction recruitment is very much as it says. You've had dealings with them. That was through the whole process of the recruitment and you coming into the team to start with. Then on the far right, you've got the education team, and they will manage all of the side of liaise with all of your education providers to ensure that they're doing what they need to. And of course, you've got your education coordinators or officers as well, should there be any specific queries around the educational elements that you can work with alongside your trainee support manager. But what I'm going to focus here on is very much the left-hand side, which is the experience team. I'm not necessarily going to go through everybody here, and the trainee support manager side, I know Dean's already introduced himself, and we've got Vanessa coming up in a moment to very clearly go through what that role is, and that's going to take up a chunk of this session. What you also have is behind the scenes a number of senior managers and coordinators who you've met some of us of today, and our role very much is to support you from the point of view of your placement. So we're here. There's a lot of work that goes on in the background when you apply to join the scheme, and I think, as was alluded to earlier, not every organisation has a trainee. They need to go through a very specific process of requesting to host trainees, and they go through an assurance and process to ensure that they're able to offer what they say they're going to do. So there's a lot of work that goes on in the background to support that and support those programme and placement managers, and that's where we come in as senior managers and coordinators largely as well. And often we can be there to help support if there's challenges that you may be having, that your trainee support manager could then bring us in as well to help out from a placement point of view. Anyway, enough about all of that. We can go into much more detail, and we could be happily here talking for hours. I've just already gone over my 5 minutes. So what I'm going to do, though, is, as well as your programme placement manager being the most important people to you on the scheme, the next most important person that you will have experience with and that can provide a level of support is your trainee support manager. So I'm going to hand over to Vanessa, who is going to talk to you about that role, and particularly around when to go to them and what they can help with.
Thank you. So I've got a few slides just to give an overview of what support you can approach your TSM for. It's not an exhaustive list, though. And just to show, this is what our current team looks like. And individually, we each cover different areas, whether that's divided by region or by specialism. And these are the 4 sort of core areas that I'm going to focus on in these slides, but again, not an exhaustive list. So it'll just give you an idea of things you can approach your TSM for in terms of support. So if I start off with placement progress, obviously you have your managers in placement who are there to support you, but equally, I'd encourage you to view your TSM as the equivalent of your GMTS line manager. So we would look to monitor your performance in terms of how you are progressing with your competencies and completing your probation and performance reviews. We can offer general guidance just to clarify the expectation of all parties when it comes to your placement experience. Equally, we can also review concerns if, for example, you have spoken to both your placement manager and programme manager and still haven't come to a resolution, then thereafter you can also approach us to come in and try and support you from that element. And we can also offer some additional assistance if you are struggling, as has been mentioned earlier on. So that could be in the form of putting a support plan in place to assist you, or maybe to help with implementing reasonable adjustments if that's something that you need to be able to perform at your optimum in placement. The next area I wanted to highlight was anything related to HR. So we have quite a lot of policies and guides, and your TSM can help signpost you to the most relevant ones based on the nature of your personal situation. In a lot of these documents, you will find that it references contacting your scheme representative for support, and that always means talking to your TSM. We can support with answering or directing queries, or if they're quite complex, then we might also be involved in looking into that to try and find a resolution for you. And below are just a few examples of some of the HR processes that we can go through with you, but again, not an exhaustive list. So next, I'd like to talk through health and well-being. So if you are struggling in that regard, you can approach your TSM and we can signpost you to supportive resources that you can access independently. Equally, we're able to offer regular check-ins, and the frequency of this can be adjusted based on your needs and your preferences. So do reach out if you do feel as though that would be beneficial for you, just to have that space which you know is protected to go through these things. We can also offer supporting letters if, for example, you need to evidence the nature of a situation that you've had, which you've been in regular contact with your TSM about. And finally, we can also refer you on for some assessments, which can offer some recommendations on how to support you better within your placement. So that could be for occupational health, it could be a workstation assessment, or a neurodiversity workplace needs assessment are some of the things that we can offer. And finally, from a TSM perspective, I would say a key part of our role is signposting, particularly if you are very unsure of where to go. So you can reach out and we can signpost accordingly, or we might be the individual who actually you need to work with to resolve that particular query. But I did also want to highlight some of these key contacts as well, and I will pop them sort of in the chat or send them after the session so you've got them to hand. And I would recommend that you keep that available, because often trainees do need to contact these separate teams for support with various issues or just general queries. The next bit I wanted to quickly touch on is around support you can access with regards to your education. So the 3 key sources of support for you will be the GMTS education team, your education provider and tutor, as well as a dedicated GMTS education officer. So our GMTS education team can be contacted via the graduate inquiries inbox. And again, I will share the details later on for you to access. They organise a lot of the scheme related events. So the conferences that are coming up, the welcome event that you went to in September. So if you have any support needs or need to work on any arrangements for that, whether that be block accommodation bookings, dietary requirements, other reasonable adjustments for things like that, then please do get in contact with the team. And they can also answer or direct you when you have general education queries as well. Then your individual education provider can provide support with your course generally, as well as with assessments. If you need reasonable adjustments for any of your assessments or just the nature of the teaching, again, you need to discuss that directly with the provider, and I'd encourage that you start those conversations quite early on. And equally, if you ever need to apply for extenuating circumstances or extension requests, again, that would go directly to the provider based on their sort of policies and processes. And finally, I wanted to highlight that you have a dedicated education officer. In this case, that is Tony Louise. So please do take note of her email, and I will share that again for you to access. But she can be a point of escalation. For example, if you got in touch with your education provider and not heard back for some time, you can reach out to her for some additional support. She can also assist with educational processes. For example, if you need to work through an appeals process, deferrals, exam bookings, particularly if you are a SITFA student. Equally, she can help with reviewing your education arrangements if they are changed and really understanding what that means for you from a scheme perspective, which is something that the education providers may not have a full understanding of. So I would absolutely encourage, if anything does change with your education, please do make sure you do get in contact with her and have that conversation so you fully understand all of your options and exactly what impact that could have. And
Brilliant.
Finally, she's also involved in offering support if you need to resubmit or resit any of your modules. You'll find that she'll contact you directly via email, but that might be a couple of weeks after you get your initial results, because our team get the final results a few weeks after trainees do. So again, just to highlight that these are the available support options.
Thank you so much, Vanessa. That was awesome. And I think we all learned that there's a lot to talk about in that space. And you know, listening to the feedback in the chat there, this is obviously somewhat a topic that you are all wanting information on. So we will take that away and think about how we can get you a little bit more information on that. We are now out of time, so I'd just like to quickly say thank you so much to all of the team on the line. Thank you to you trainees for getting stuck in and asking all of your questions. Thank you to our trainees from different cohorts that come along and helped answer some of your questions today. And of course, thank you to our placement program managers that joined. We will be in touch with you again very soon and run something like this again to make sure that you have some more information and you feel well supported along your journey as a trainee. And also we'll just say the TSMs will be in contact with you to arrange those one-to-one meetings with your placement managers, and they'll be staying very in touch with you. So, you know, if you do have questions like this, your trainee support manager will be able to help you along the way. Final thing to say from me is we're going to send you out some feedback. Please fill it in. It's really useful to us and helps future cohorts. But for now, it's been lovely to get to spend some time with you all. We look forward to doing it again, and we will speak to you very soon. Thank you so much, everyone.